Out of Line is an atmospheric platform puzzler with hand-drawn graphics. The story is you play a small creature who starts in a dystopian factory who decides to escape. The entire story is communicated without any dialogue, just through verbal cues and body language. Almost immediately, you encounter a strange glowing cube that inexplicably becomes a spear, which you will use to solve most of the puzzles. Some of the options are to throw the spear into walls to create an extra little platform to bounce over the walls that are too high to climb over. You can throw it to jam gears to prevent huge blocks from crushing you into a pancake. You might throw it to push buttons that are too high for you to reach, or to use as a lever to control other platforms or blocks. After you've thrown the spear, you can retrieve it with the same button you used to throw it, and this can create a nice rhythm, especially in chase scenes when you have to clear the path in front of you as quickly as possible. Another interesting mechanic is that sometimes you are cooperating with other creatures that seem to also be trying to escape the factory or have their own motivations entirely. At different times, you will have to wait for them to do something to help you, or you will have to do something to help them advance so that they can help you get over that obstacle. About half an hour into the game, you find a second type of spear. These are left along the trail at strategic places. They are temporary one-use spears with a timer, and you have to think very carefully about how to use them in conjunction with your permanent spear. I mentioned the unique hand-drawn art style. This does create a very whimsical and interesting atmosphere, and there is a lot of depth and detail to the environments. The sound effects and music are both subtle, and I think they are the type that do their job best when you don't even notice them. They just help to create an atmosphere. Altogether, this game is very short. You should be able to finish it in about 2 hours. Okay, so that gives you an idea of what Out of Line has to offer. Now the question is, should you play it? But first, remember that this game is going to be completely free from the Epic Games Store the week starting September 21st, 2023. If you add it to your library during that week, you keep it forever, install it whenever you want. And that is what we do on this channel. We play and review every free weekly game from the Epic Games Store, so you never have to be bored or waste your time on bad games ever again. So I more or less enjoyed this game, but I have some mixed feelings about it. I think there was a lot more potential in a few categories that wasn't fully realized. Starting, of course, with the story, that there are ways to express a story without verbal cues. It didn't do a terrible job, but it didn't really explain anything. It just raised a lot of questions, was very mysterious, but then didn't actually pay off on very much of that intrigue or engagement in trying to know what's going on. Also, the moments of cooperation with other creatures in the game was interesting. This added a nice extra element to the puzzles of needing to know what to do for the other character so that you could both advance. However, this often just reminded me that there was a lot of potential here to make it a co-op game. That would have been really cool. And since you are just waiting for an NPC to do what it's supposed to do, it kind of loses some of the magic that it could have had if you were able to play it with a friend. Most importantly, in a puzzle platformer is the mechanics. The spear is very versatile, it is creative, but I feel like it didn't fulfill its full potential and complexity. Maybe if the spear had arrived a little bit later in the game so it was a novelty, but more importantly, I think there should have been more different types of spears that made the puzzles more multidimensional and multifaceted going forward. By the end of even just 2-hour playtime, it did start to seem very repetitive, and none of the puzzles were particularly challenging. It was usually clear right off the bat what you had to do. It was just a matter of getting the timing right. Now, the graphics are very pretty, the characters are charming, and the world is interesting. I was kind of intrigued by what's going on, and there were some strong emotions and feelings at different points in the game. And so even if it's abstract and you don't know what's going on, it still did manage to make me feel concern for this cute little character, fear of the machines that are chasing it. And I think the purpose of video games, like any art form, is ultimately to try to make us feel things. So I didn't know exactly what was going on or why I was feeling certain things, but it did manage to elicit some emotions. Because of that, I do wish that it had managed to make the puzzles increasingly more complex and to have made it a longer game with a more complete story. 2 hours is not very long, and that's why if you're considering buying this game, I think that's probably the most important factor. It's enjoyable, it's pleasant, but it's extremely short. However, since I am reviewing this as a free game and the question is this worth your time, not your money? It was a pleasant experience, and in fact with all of the free games that we have these days, subscribe to our channel if you're not aware that this is a golden era of free games, the 2-hour playtime might actually be an advantage because it's something you can have a pleasant experience with, check it off of your backlog, and maybe never go back to it again. The fact that it's free means that, yeah, this is probably worth your time. It's a very light download. Almost any computer should be able to run it. And especially if you are a fan of games like Inside or Limbo, this is not as good as that, and it is not as emotional or engaging or challenging as those games. However, if you love those games and you kind of miss that environment, that type of game, this is in that same vein, and it is worth your time. That being said, if you haven't played Inside, well, we have a review for that. It was free from the Epic Games Store, many years ago. It is actually the first video game review that we ever did in this channel, so be prepared for a downgrade of quality in almost every way for that video. But if you want to know about a really great puzzle platformer without any dialogue that manages to give an emotional story just through its visuals, then definitely check out Inside, and we hope you'll stick around for more information about free games all across the gaming universe. Catch you next time.